Topic is Afghanistan. Where do we go from here? And of course, the guest is Dr. LMadu1. Dr. LMadu1, let's pick up where we left off, and we've got 10 minutes, and try to get in as much of this information as we possibly can in the 10 minutes that we have remaining. Go on, start.
So in 2001, we had the World Trade Center affair, orchestrated by Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda in Arabic means the base, by Bin Laden's men. Because of it, we invaded Afghanistan and overthrew the Taliban because Mullah Omar refused, because of friendship, to have Bin Laden kicked out of Afghanistan. We invaded and installed Hamid Karzai as president of Afghanistan, who is still president up till now. Al-Qaeda left. I wouldn't say they left, we drove them out. But right now they have sanctuary in Waziristan, in Pakistan, where Bin Laden supposedly is staying. And people should understand, people say, well, why are the Taliban so strong up to now? They forget that across the border in Pakistan, you have also the Pashtuns. The Pashtuns are in Pakistan, and they're also in Afghanistan. So it's their brothers across, so they can just move across the border without anybody noticing. They speak the same language, you see. So that's what made it difficult to be able to penetrate or destroy the Taliban, because you have Talibans now in Pakistan, you have Talibans also now in Afghanistan. And people have to understand that the Taliban is what you call a Pashtun insurrectionist movement. They are predominantly Sunni Pashtuns, who are the Taliban. Most of the other ethnic groups, the Uzbeks and the Tajiks, are not part of the Taliban infrastructure. They're primarily, a Pashtun, insurrectionist movement. Now that, Al-Qaeda is out of, Afghanistan, people are wondering, why are we still there? Why are we still there? What are we doing? Currently, according to General McChrystal, who is the commander of our troops in Afghanistan, we have about 68,000 troops in Afghanistan. When we landed in Afghanistan to overthrow the Taliban, there were only 313 American troops on the ground. Actually, the fighting was done by the Tajik, insurrectionist movement led by Ahmed Shah Massoud. They will use them to overthrow the Taliban. And then, because we are busy in Iraq, we couldn't have enough troop strength in Afghanistan to do the job. Okay? So now we have 68,000 troops there. There's a pressure for 40,000 additional troops to bring the troop strength to about 100,000. And people are asking, why? Since we've thrown the Taliban out of Afghanistan, what are we still doing there? Why can't we leave? And I can understand that. At the moment, okay, we are fighting the Taliban. Now, not Al-Qaeda, because Al-Qaeda has already moved. And they can move even to Somalia. If you drive them from Pakistan, they can move to Somalia or other bases, which they've already started doing. They've dispersed already. I do not think, strategically, that we should still stay in Afghanistan or even increase the troop level. I think what we should do that will make some political sense is to do what we did in Iraq. Is co-opt some members of the Taliban, who are not really the core of the Taliban, and arm them to do the fighting, not do the fighting ourselves. What we did in Iraq, what General Petraeus did in Iraq, was co-opt the insurgents, arm them, the Sunni insurgents, and pay them, put them on the payroll. They are called the Renaissance Army now, and let them do the fighting on behalf of the Sunnis. Okay? That's what we need to do in Afghanistan, is get those members of the Taliban who are not core Taliban and pay them, give them a job, and give them the guns to do the fighting against the Taliban. We can withdraw. American troops can withdraw to some strategic points in Afghanistan, like the Bagram Air Base, or stay in some of the big cities like Kabul and Kandahar, and then carry out strikes, with drones and helicopters, all this, wherever we find Al-Qaeda. What we are doing now is fighting the Taliban. It's like fighting the hometown people. And that's why resentment is growing now in Afghanistan against our troops. Even President Karzai is complaining about, bombings. That is killing civilians. So they're getting angry at us. So the more we stay, the more we start getting bogged down. And eventually we might get driven out, like they drove the Russians out. Yeah, because it seems that like that's what's happening now. We are fighting the Afghans, no more Al-Qaeda. You see, because the Taliban, they're Afghans. They have nothing to do.
You said we're fighting the hometown
Exactly,
folks,
we are fighting the hometown folks now. And that's not what we went there for. We went there to drive Al-Qaeda out, quite frankly.
And since Al-Qaeda is out, we have no reason to want to stay there.
Exactly, we don't have
strategic reason.
No strategic reason to stay there. You know, militarily, we can still keep an eye on Al-Qaeda from bases within Afghanistan itself, just like we've done in Iraq now. Withdraw, you know, to bases. In case there's any problem, we move in. You know, but arm the local people themselves to do the fighting themselves. You know, because what is happening now, regardless of how much we train the Afghan army, regardless of how much equipment we give the Afghan army, I do not think they are capable of defeating the Taliban, because the Taliban have, you know, ideological motivations to fight. There's a difference between an army that has the motivation to fight and an army that just wants to get paid. Okay, the Afghan army at the moment don't have that ideological zeal to be able to fight the Taliban. The Taliban, they are motivated ideologically, religiously, and otherwise, you know, to fight. You see, and that's the big difference between, you know, the army of Karzai, you know, and the Taliban themselves. You see, you have the Taliban everywhere. Now, Mullah Omar, who is the spiritual leader of the Taliban, is still in Afghanistan. But we can find him because nobody really knows what he looks like. You know, they know he has one eye he lost during the war against the Russians, but nobody ever saw his picture. They don't even know what he looks like. So he might be walking around in Kabul and nobody knows, you know. So he's still leading the insurrection in Afghanistan. And so now that a lot of members of Congress are questioning, particularly members of the, you know, Democratic Party are questioning, hey, why are we sending 40,000 more soldiers to Afghanistan? It doesn't make sense. You know, what we should be doing now is trying to, you know, lessen our presence there, put more money into building roads, schools, infrastructure.
Like they were planning on the good.
Exactly. Infrastructure, you know, schools and all those things to create employment for people. Because what you have right now, 60 to 70% unemployment. So all those who are unemployed, what do you have? They join the Taliban, where they can.
They have no alternative. They don't
have any alternative but to join the Taliban and get some money, you know, to feed their families and all this. They won't be walking around and growing the opium. The Taliban also, you know, are part of that opium growing group because that's how they get money to buy their equipment. Now, the gross GDP now is about, they have a budget of they have an expenditure now of $2.7 billion, but they have, you know, an income. The government's income is about $900 million, okay, which is they're already running, you know, on a deficit, a big deficit, okay. So, but the opium trade is about $3 billion, illegal, okay, and it doesn't go into the government coffers. It goes into the Taliban covers, and, you know, because it's illegal, the government doesn't control it, okay? And so what does the government, what does the United States government want Karzai to do? They say, well, you know, you got to control that opium growing and all this. Karzai say, well, okay, fine. What are those farmers going to be growing? How can they make money? They got to have some. Okay, if you want to destroy the opium trade and poppy and all these crops, that's fine. But those farmers got to have an alternative crop, okay? But the thing is that most of where those opium is grown is controlled by the Taliban. Karzai's, you know, authority doesn't extend beyond Kabul, like most people know. He doesn't even control the northern part of the country, which is under the control of General Dostum, or the western part of the country in Herat, which is under, you know, Iranian influence, or the Tajik, you know, territories, which is under, you know, control of other factions. And that's the big problem, you know. Now people say, well, why is President Obama trying to talk with the Iranians and all this? Yes, he's trying to talk with the Iranians because in a way Iran has some influence in Afghanistan. Most of Western, you know, Iran, Western Afghanistan, you know, has, you know...
And that could at least give us an opportunity by negotiating with Iran, at least give us an opportunity to get out of there.
That's correct. Exactly. Okay. Give us some opportunity to get out of there.
Dr. Madu, we're just about coming to the end of this show, as you know, and we just thank you for just bringing that information, that relationship information by, to us today. And I think that a lot of folks will see in what you're saying here some of the real problems that we are having. And of course, let me also encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition, and to remind them that most of these topics can be seen on our site on YouTube. And again, let me thank you for being with us tonight, this morning, and again, good morning.